Welcome everyone to this event on powering sustainable cold chain solutions, community cooling hubs, ensuring nutritious and healthy food for all. This event is co-hosted by UNEP-led Cool Coalition, FAO, and Sustainable Energy for All. My name is Zitouni Uldada. I'm the Deputy Director of the Office of Climate Change, Biodiversity and Environment at FAO. And it is my great pleasure to moderate this event and to welcome you all and our speakers. Let me just say a couple of words just to set the scene and explain how we're going to run this event. Today we have around 811 million people who are going hungry, following a year of lockdowns and stalling global economy. And on the other hand, we still waste too much food. The third of the food that is produced for human consumption is thrown away. So it doesn't really make any sense. And this is why we need approaches, we need technologies that can help us to address this problem. And the cold chain has a huge potential in helping us to address this. In fact, the lack of effective cold chain is estimated to directly result in losses of around 475 million tons, or 13% of total food production. And this is not to be underestimated because it is worth around $350 billion. And it's enough to feed around 950 million people. So the lack of access to cold chains also denies perishable food to reach the market safely and effectively. And food loss is not only about the loss of the food commodity, but it's also the loss of all the energy, water, effort, and resources and everything that went into producing this food. An estimated 20 to 40% of food production in sub-Saharan Africa is lost because of food processing and storage. So obviously scaling up action to achieve efficient and climate-friendly cold chains contributes to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, and also the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. And this is why the international community recognized the role of cold chains in the food systems with the Rome Declaration on the contribution to the Montreal Protocol to food loss reduction through sustainable cold chain management. So the aim of our event today is to learn about some ongoing activities in different parts of the world and to present some opportunities for countries to scale up action on sustainable cold chain. So I'm very pleased to welcome and introduce our speakers at this event today. The event will be done in three parts. So part one, we'll hear keynote remarks from our colleague Ligia Noronha, who's the UN Assistant Secretary General and head of UNEP at the New York office, followed by a presentation from Toby Peters, professor at the University of Birmingham, who will present on community cooling hubs. Then we'll have a panel discussion. The panel will be composed of Javier Manzanares, who's the Deputy Executive Director from the Green Climate Fund, Vikas Shrob, who is Joint Secretary at the Ministry of Commerce and Industry of the Government of India, Kevin Fay, who's the Executive Director of Global Food Cold Chain Council, and Ben Volk, who's the Global Head of the Food and Agriculture Partnerships at the Rabobank. And the third part of this event will be honored to have with us Her Excellency Minister Dr. Jeanne d'Arc Murawa Maria, Ministry of Environment of Rwanda, who will give her closing remarks. So thank you again for joining us. We have 50 minutes of this event to bring you up to speed what's happening in this important area. And I'll just check if Ligia is with us. Yeah, I can see you, Ligia. It's very pleased to see you and to have you with us. And I'm glad you connected successfully. So without much ado, just to say that we're really pleased and honored to have you with us. And I'll hand over to you for opening remark, Ligia.
Oh, very good morning, Zitouni, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you this morning and with all the colleagues. So good morning, distinguished colleagues. Good morning, participants. It's indeed a pleasure to be here at the pre-summit of the UN Food Summit and to discuss it and to be with you on this powering sustainable cold chain solutions. The importance of cooling cannot be underestimated, not only because it speaks to the environment and development agenda, but also because it is so absolutely key to the food, energy, climate nexus. And it's in this context that it is very important for us all to be gathered here today. And I look forward to listening to all of you this morning. Cooling, I don't need to tell any of those of you who are connected, plays a fundamental role in our food systems. Cold chains are critical to keep our food systems from farm to fork, but deliver affordable, nutritious, and safe food while improving the farmers' livelihoods. Sustainable cold chains can help reduce the 475 million tons of food lost each year due to lack of refrigeration. This is equal to 13% of total food production, worth $350 billion US, and enough to feed approximately 950 million people. It immediately speaks to the equity issue and the access issue, which is so fundamental to the SDGs. But to deliver on this, we need to expand the access to cold chains, and we cannot do this on a business as usual basis. Global food chains are already responsible for 1% of greenhouse gas emissions, and these emissions are projected to rise significantly. And so if we want to invest in cold food chains, we need to immediately also keep in mind the food, energy, climate nexus. So we need new business models that make cold food chains affordable for the small scale and marginal farmers and match the challenge with appropriate financial data and policy support. We need system-wide solutions that use sustainable energy and ensure access to cooling services in rural areas. And therefore, we're delighted to hear about the community cooling hubs, an idea that has been selected as a game-changing solution for the UN Food Systems Summit. And you will hear from Professor Toby Peters on this. We have an opportunity to rally commitments and take action on these solutions to transform our food systems while delivering on energy and climate. Ladies and gentlemen, how do we get there? This is not going to happen overnight, and this is not going to happen without an active support from all of us to enable and enhance coordination and coordinated action, to collect and share more data and to scale up what works. So we need to overcome challenges around coordination, and development of the cold chain requires a joined up multi-actor effort and an integrated approach to sustainable cold chains, which is why platforms like the Cool Coalition can play the systems integrator role, bringing all the relevant stakeholders to the table. Secondly, we need to create a strong basis for action by collecting data and carrying out cold chain assessments. Tools like the Data Assessment Framework prepared by UNEP's Ozone Action Program and the Global Food Cold Chain Council can fill these gaps. The National Cooling Action Plans methodology developed by partners in the Cool Coalition is another very useful tool that can help this. Thirdly, we need frameworks for effective financing models and opportunities which are available to those who need them. And finally, we need political leadership at the highest level of governance. The good news is that we have 82 countries already signed up to the Rome Declaration on the contribution of the Montreal Protocol to food loss reduction through sustainable cold chain developments. What is also important is that this is a very important year, 2021. There's so many different things happening. The year offers us a wealth of opportunities to translate the Rome Declaration into action and to deliver on the energy, food, climate nexus through the sustainable cold chains. We have an opportunity to make the cross-cutting commitments that we need to talk about on these cold chains that can deliver the high-level dialogue on energy, the UN food systems, and COP26 and beyond. By acting on sustainable cold chains, we can give a much-needed shot in the arm for climate action, the energy transition, and sustainable food systems. I invite everyone to learn from the panelists today about the great opportunities we have to make this change happen, because together we can make a difference. I wish this meeting and this effort every success. And again, I'm delighted to be here with you this morning. Thank you very much. Zituni, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Ligia. I'm delighted that you're able to join us, and thank you very much for highlighting some of the key points, particularly the equity and access issues and the fact that this applies to the cold chain as well to ensure and expand access to the cold chain for everyone. And also the good point you made about finding new models that looks at the nexus of food, energy, and climate, and find system-wide solutions. So that, thank you very much for that. And you're right, we need political leadership, and we need to translate the Rome Declaration into action. And hopefully what we're going to hear soon through a presentation, also the panel discussion, would bring some light, would shed some light into that and highlight some of the ongoing actions for this. So thank you very much, Licia. Now I would like to invite Toby Peters, professor at the University of Birmingham, who will give a short presentation on the community cooling hubs. Peter, over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me here. If you could jump forward to the next slide, please, Irene. And one more. So by way of background, just quickly, the Centre for Sustainable Cooling brings together multidisciplinary expertise and industry to look at sustainable cold chain solutions and access to cooling for all. We run about $25 million worth of research program. Only 15% of all food that should benefit from refrigeration or could benefit is refrigerated. And as we've heard, up to about 40% of food is lost between farm and market in sub-Saharan Africa, 2/3 in the first mile. So in short, for me, food saved is as important as food produced. In Rwanda, as an example, where we're working, food loss equates to 21% of its total land use, 16% of the greenhouse gas emissions, and 12% lost to its annual GDP. Next slide, please. But it's important to remember that, for example, 80% of African farms are smaller than 2 hectares, but in combination, they produce 70% of the continent's total food. So the exam question is, how do you create the local and global field-to-fork connectivity to nutritiously feed 10 billion people by 2050 from hundreds of millions small-scale farmers whose livelihoods and well-being are often dependent on only 1 or 2 hectares of land, as well as ensure they're climate change adaptation ready and resilient, and achieve this sustainably, i.e. without using diesel. Key challenges to cold chains include lack of market data, lack of access to finance, lack of access to energy, lack of training and skills, fragmented nature of the agricultural land holdings. And at the same time, cold chain isn't just cold storage. Cold chains are complex, multi-dimensional, integrated networks of refrigerated and temperature-controlled pack houses, distribution hubs, and vehicles which are used to maintain the safety, quality, and quantity of food whilst moving it swiftly from the farm gate to consumption centres. Next slide, please. And of course, in addition to agriculture, cooling cuts across many rural sectors and applications: medicine, space cooling for comfort, productivity, domestic food storage. As one example, cold chain is essential for rapid mass immunisation to counter COVID, and 80% of the population needs to be vaccinated, potentially with 2 injections. The vaccines are temperature sensitive, and the cold chain has to work seamlessly from point of manufacture right the way through to the outfield, which often is a long way away and in outreach. Next slide, please.
Sorry to interrupt you, Peter. Just ask colleagues, please mute yourselves.
Thank you. Oh, no, okay. So if you could jump to the next slide, please. So in my view, efficient and environmentally friendly cooling and cold chain can only be achieved if the entire system is designed cohesively and an integrated approach is applied that converges the diverse cooling requirements across the end. And working with the Cool Coalition and others, we've developed a needs-driven system approach to cold chain and cooling to deliver against the pillars of social need, affordability, accessibility, business and economic opportunity, climate, energy, and resilience. Jump forward, please, to the next slide. One output of this is community cooling hubs, so an integrated approach to meet the broad portfolio of a rural community's cooling and cold chain needs, whilst being economically, environmentally, and socially sustainable. By combining a system-level view of the total community cooling needs and using new business models such as servitization, cooling as a service, community cooling hubs are designed to affordably meet aggregated rural community cooling needs, providing a pathway to efficient capacity utilization. Next slide, please. On a technical level, community cooling hubs allow use of all energy resources and smart combination and interconnection of energy vectors, solar energy, waste heat, waste cold, bioenergy to deliver the solutions. And jump forward, please. At the policy level, as you can see, cooling and community cooling hubs totally contribute to all of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, and the Kigali amendments to the Montreal Protocol simultaneously. Next slide, please. How are we delivering this? So we've launched with the United for Efficiency, the Africa Centre of Excellence for Sustainable Cooling and Cold Chain. Further centres are in development in other markets, the next in India, and underpinned with multi-million-pound public sector investments by the governments of UK and Rwanda, scheduled to open in 2022 with its own campus, 96-acre campus in Kigali in Rwanda. Next slide, please. So it will showcase local market usability and value proposition of technologies available. It will help least served communities work in partnership with industry and academia to reduce food loss and increase access to cold. It will provide the skills and encouragement to young people to access these exciting career opportunities in fast-growing global sectors. And also it will deliver industry the right environment, sales channels and support for the development, demonstration and marketing of technologies. It works across the whole chain from post-harvest right the way through to the end retailer. It includes a business startup and incubation suite. Next slide, please. And then we use living labs to cascade the knowledge out into the communities. So in summary, if you jump to the next slide, please. To transform the cooling and cold chain sector, to deliver access to sustainable cooling for all who need it in the shortest possible time, we have to collaborate at all levels: communities, industry, private sector, governments, academia, development institutions, and civil society, among others. And working with FAO, Power for All, the Cool Coalition, I think, can really mobilize the commitments, actions, and collaborations to deliver these game-changing innovations, which are so required to ensure nutritious and healthy food and access to cooling for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Toby. That's very nice and clear presentation that sets the scene very nicely. And I hope that colleagues joining us find it also useful in understanding, what's the community hub, community cooling hub are about. So thank you for highlighting, particularly how the cold chain is complex and it lacks, the data and lacks access to energy and finance, which are really very important. And thank you for highlighting the co-benefits as well in terms of storing medicine and providing cooling space as well. And thank you for highlighting the community cooling hub and the advantages around that. So let me now dive into the discussion to invite our panelists. And if I may start with Javier. So the aim of this discussion, the first set of questions I would like to ask you is to get your initial views and thoughts on how your work is supporting the goals of delivering sustainable cold chain solutions for all. So Javier, obviously there is a big interest in the GCF mission. So can you just tell us briefly, and I just want to emphasize that everyone will have 1 minute, please, very short. So Javier, how sustainable approaches to food cold chain fit into the GCF mission, portfolio, and existing funding projects?
Thank you, Sitoni, and a pleasure and honor to join this panel. Greetings to all participants. For those who are not familiar with the Green Climate Fund, the GCF is the largest dedicated climate fund with a mission to channel climate finance to developing countries, equally balanced between support for low emissions and climate resilient development. And as you can imagine, cooling is an important factor to both of the areas for mitigation and adaptation. According to our records, cooling accounts for 30 to 35% of final electricity demand, and it is one of the fastest growing sectors of electricity demand. Well, this is particularly the case also in developing countries that GCF services, about 140 countries, where there is still 1 billion people who do not have access to cooling services. We need to avoid now the risk that countries heading for high carbon cooling systems, which may have lower initial costs, but are inefficient, have higher operating costs, and are damaging to the climate. Establishing efficient cold chains is also important to support efforts to reduce the impact of climate change, including in relation to food security. Efficient cold chains can support climate-friendly, sustainable development in 4 areas at least. For us, is energy efficiency, improved food security, inclusive growth by strengthening livelihoods for smallholders through post-harvest food loss reduction. And the 4th one, commercialization of agricultural produce for market development. Through our efforts, the GCF aims to help countries implement replicable and scalable projects, establish new markets for efficient and climate-friendly cooling technology, as well as building financial products for their uptake, which will lead to the green and resilient recovery. We have some important relevant initiatives in our pipeline to support these aims, and I would be happy to give you more details later on. Thank you very much. Over to you, Sutuni.
Thank you very much, Javier. And let's hear the perspective from a country, and particularly India. I'm glad that we have Vikas Shaub with us. And Vikas, can you give us a short description also the work that the Ministry of Commerce and Industry is doing in this space on sustainable cold chain? Very briefly in a minute, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and namaste from India. Just to give a brief outline, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry is presently, framing the national logistics policy, and we are looking at various supply chains. And one of the supply chains that gives, is the most intriguing for us, I think, not only for India but for the globe as a whole, is the supply chain connecting food, producer to the end user, and the fact that there is coexistence of surplus food which is getting wasted, and malnutrition and hunger. So that is one of the basic challenges, and it is one of the key policy areas for work. And we also recognize, as has been said before, that this is a problem which has existed for several years, and not only a whole of government approach connecting across silos, across national and subnational actors, but also a whole of nation approach is needed in order to address this problem. And we recognize that in the policy, and we also recognize that a business as usual component sort of interventions are not going to do. The specific areas on which we shall discuss at length in detail broadly cover expansion of the cold chain infrastructure, the creation of pair of commodities that can co-utilize the infrastructure, and not have infrastructure addressing only a particular department or a particular sector's need, reducing energy use, spurring private investment, creating a national directory, a visible sort of supply chain information resource which can be co-used by other actors, developing pack houses. So those are the interventions on which we are listing in the policy and deciding, hoping to act. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Vikas, and thank you for highlighting the challenges, also saying that it's an ongoing problem and not just for government to have this approach, but for others involved in this across society, obviously. And I'm very pleased that we have the Global Food Cold Chain Council and the Rabobank with us. Let me start with Kevin Fay on the role of the Global Food Cold Chain Council and main relevant activities in this area. Over to you, Kevin.
So Tony, thank you for that kind introduction. We're very appreciative of the opportunity to participate. The Global Food Cold Chain Council came together in 2014 and was announced at the UN Secretary General's Climate Summit that year. First focused on helping to achieve the transition to low GWP refrigerants and high energy efficient technologies as part of the push towards what became the Kigali Amendment. There was a lot of focus building around cooling, but there'd been very little focus around the cold chain. As we got into that conversation, you've cited many of the statistics that have now become a big part of our action agenda moving forward in terms of the role of food loss and waste in greenhouse gas emissions and the importance of food security. And so the purpose of the industry coalition, it's an international industry coalition, is to help bring together programs and knit together programs that have worked successfully in other areas like the Montreal Protocol to help facilitate technology innovation, to reduce food loss and waste, to meet the objectives of the HFC phase down, as well as to expand the accessibility to the agriculture industry from farm to fork, and do it in a way that's sustainable and helps the populations around the world.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Kevin, for sharing with us the industry coalition perspective. Very pleased to have you with us. And private sector and banks, obviously, are very important for this endeavor. And very pleased that we have Ben Valk with us from Rabobank. So Ben, if you could also share with us, some information about the portfolio on cold chains and the importance for the bank's objectives. Over to you, Ben.
Thank you, Chair. And it's a pleasure and honor to be here, participate in this session, and also to liaise with the Cool Coalition led by UNA Environment, Lydia and Clementine O'Connor and others with their wonderful expertise. Rabobank is in its international business entirely focused on food and agribusiness, and especially on transition to sustainable food systems. That's basically our strategy, and we want to be one of the leading bankers, financiers, knowledge partners, and leaders in that regard. So cold chain is extremely important for us. And one of the things we started to realize is that we need to start this as early in the value chain as possible. And that means in rural areas, very close to producers. Whether it's dairy producers, whether it's growers of fruits and vegetables, whether it's meat producers, we need to be there where the produce is still as it's most fresh. You can preserve quality of food, but once lost, for instance, because of a lack of cooling, you don't revive it, you don't get it back anymore, right? It's irreversible. So we need to be there, and that's exactly what the Cool Coalition is doing. As Rabobank with FAO and World Bank, we're also endeavoring, especially on a project starting in Kenya for cooling cold chain in rural areas with mobile solar-fed cooled containers. So they can be loaded on trucks. They can follow the different growth seasons of different crops. We use them currently for avocado, tomato, green beans, mangoes, but they can also be used, of course, for cooling meat, dairy, fish. There are examples from also solar cooled containers used for fish from Lake Victoria to Nairobi. As a banker, I'm enthusiastic about this because I see the upside in the business case. And to decide on the bankability or investability of projects, I always have to ask myself, are farmers having a good business case in this? Are processors, traders, aggregators, retailers, are they having a good business case in this? And the upside in Cooling, of course, is that we preserve more of the crop, that we preserve a higher quality, which can hopefully also make a higher price. And in some cases that we can also attract payment for nature-based services. So those are basically the upsides. I won't go further into detail, but that's basically where I see the investability and the economic viability of cooling in rural areas. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ben. And I'll come back to you with another question. I know you have to leave before the event, but I'll come back to all of you. Let us dive now into the topic a little bit more deeply. Let me come back to you, Javier. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in GCF and particularly in scaling up some of the actions that we heard about. So why are sustainable cooling and cold chains such an important part of climate change mitigation and adaptation? And if you could just tell us in a couple of minutes, what is the GCF strategy in scaling up actions in these two important areas?
Yeah, thank you, Sutini. As we have heard, sustainable cooling and cold chain are critical to adaptation and mitigation efforts. GCF's strategy to scale up action emphasizes not on support for a single specific technology, but mostly on integrating ideas. We are working across the cooling supply chain from the net zero cooling to super efficient cooling, from the HFC phase down to equipment manufacturing, from cold chain in agribusiness and health, which are critical for the recovery of most of the vulnerable communities from this pandemic, to space, cooling, and urban design. The GCF is ready to test innovative business models and invest in sustainable financing mechanisms to encourage further investment and action in sustainable cooling. We already see some examples of models being developed in energy efficient and climate-friendly cooling, such as leasing models, on-bill financing, cooling as a service, revolving funds, and de-risking instruments. But we would like to scale this up through our funding activities. We've worked to develop a pipeline of cooling projects, which GCF is processing as we speak. Let me give you just 3 examples of some innovations being considered in our pipeline of project proposals. First, a cooling hub, one-stop shop for cooling services in rural setting. Second, off-grid cooling, supplying cold chain solutions to increase the capacity of rural energy generation and also build extra revenue for mini-grid suppliers. And finally, the idea of cold chain as a service, building a third-party business around providing sustainable cold chain. Over to you, Situni.
Thank you for that. And I'll just pick up on what you said on the cold chain as a service. And obviously, one of the communities we need to reach out to is smallholder farmers. There are about 500 million of smallholder farmers around the world who are highly dependent on natural resources and agriculture. So let me bring you in, Vikas, and particularly from the perspective from India, and what is the government is doing, what is its strategy to deliver sustainable cold chains to smallholder farmers and rural communities. Over to you, Vikas.
Thank you, Zitoni. The welfare of the farmers is foremost because they comprise a vast population of this country. And, the objective of any strategy for this country would be to, reap the broad spectrum benefits that, that can be made available from providing the, cold chain infrastructure connecting rural India to the consumption centers. The strategy essentially evolves around the 4 areas of, the right energy and technology, the right transportation, logistics, the financial, aspects to this whole question, and training and capacity building. The underlying, the underlying theme is to, build on shared use and not sectoral use, the utilizing the circularity if it were to be possible between as has been said, farm to arm and farm to fork, connecting these two in a reverse logistics manner if possible, and creating opportunities for utilizing community cooling hubs for multiple purposes. As far as the energy and technology are concerned, our country is a pioneer on the International Solar Alliance, and it supports increasing use of solar energy, which has 3 near-term objectives, including development of integrated and solar hybrid-based cold chain solutions, including for the use of post-harvest, as well as to extend the shelf life of farm commodities. India has also created an India Cooling Action Plan (ICAP) in 2019, and that action plan seeks to not only reduce cooling demand, reduce refrigerant demand, reduce cooling energy requirements by different percentages, but also to create a vast setup of trained sector technicians. The doubling of farmers' income and providing better cold chain infrastructure, better value of produce to farmers, less wastage of produce. These are the identified goals in this particular area. And one of the areas on which, in terms of technology, on which work is going on is the technologies for pack house management. The government of Haryana, one of the states in India, for example, is planning to create more than 350 pack houses in that state. As far as transport and logistics is concerned, I think 3 or 4, I think cutting across sectors. Kisan Rath, a digital facilitative platform for connecting the farm producers and the logistics service providers on a digital platform. Kisan Rail, an initiative of the Ministry of Railways to connect through their very, very extensive system, the extension of the markets availability and market reach to the farmers. Krishi Udan for certain products, the air and plane aviation route connectivity, as well as creation of warehouses through various modes like viability gap funding on PPP model has been taken up. On the financial side, there is the mission for integrated development of horticulture, the MIDH, for which the government of India has allocated 2,250 crore of rupees, and the financial incentive schemes like the Pradhan Mantri Sampada Yojana, a scheme essentially to provide financial incentives to development of cold chain infrastructure. Training and capacity building, we have schemes from National Cold Chain Resource Center and the Center of Excellence in Cold Chain Technology Management. So you also asked about challenges. Being India and a vast country with huge diversity, there is complexity, and that produces its own set of challenges, which any such effort has to grapple with. There are multiple interdependencies between what energy form you are using, what is available, what technology choice you are making, the socio-political system, and that I think is the crux of the challenge. The legacy systems and how we put together the fragmented efforts into something holistic is another challenge. So that would be from me. Back to you, sir.
Great, thank you very much, Vikas. And let me turn into Kevin now. So you heard how Vikas talks about what's happening at a country level. The plans that's being put in place, particularly the India Cooling Action Plan and training and capacity building. But from your perspective, from the industry coalition perspective, where the action should happen, what are the key pillars for action that countries really need to work on to deliver sustainable cold chain models and solutions for all?
Exactly, and so good to be on this program with so many of our partners in the future to make those pillars work. We're promoting a system of 4 pillars, starting with data gathering and modeling so that each country can understand what the potential is in their country in terms of the status of the cold chain, the needs of the cold chain, the needs of the agriculture community. We partnered with the UNEP Ozone Action on that, have developed a questionnaire and a model, and we're piloting that in 6 countries today, in Bahrain, Bosnia Herzegovina, Senegal, Paraguay, the Maldives, and North Macedonia. And so that's the first pillar, is to get a handle on what your cold chain is and what your cold chain needs are. The second pillar is the development of a technology matrix. We learned, for example, in the Montreal Protocol, it's one of the most successful technology transition treaties ever implemented. And UNEP Ozone Action and the Multilateral Fund there have a great role in that. But we want to bring the experts together from around the world, such as in the Cool Coalition. We work with Toby Peters as well, to identify what the technology needs are, the renewable energy, the low GWP refrigerants, but also the transport and how to get the technology that works down into the rural areas for the farm community. So technology matrix is very important. The third is identification of a finance mechanism, first for capacity building. And it's very important. It's a very big role we think that the Green Climate Fund can assist on to help constitute these data gathering and modeling exercises, not only for just gathering the data, but also developing the educational programs necessary for the agriculture community, for the small farmers, on the potential benefits and role of the cold chain in doing that. And then the fourth is the finance mechanism necessary for expansion of the sustainable cold chain. And Rabobank is going to be key to part of that effort. The World Bank and others, the Green Climate Fund as well. But ultimately, those four pillars make up the framework of how going forward we can achieve. We're all part of Champions 12.3 of 12.3, the Sustainable Development Goal of reducing food loss and waste by 50% by 2030. And so we're advocating that out of the Food System Summit, that those four pillars become the framework moving forward, where we can knit all of these programs together in order to build on sustainable cold chain expansion for the benefit of food security and the economy and the environment.
Well, thank you very much, Ben, for highlighting these four pillars. And that brings me nicely to the one you highlighted, in addition to technology, the finance one. And we heard from the GCFs, and I would like to bring in Ben. Obviously, Ben, you know, for these things to happen, you need to address the challenges of financing. So what are the existing challenges in financing sustainable cold chain for all? And how can banks like the Rabobank support this process?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for all the different dimensions and angles of view. What I did in my first response, basically very high level, evaluating the business case for cooling in value chains is really key. It's really the starting point for finance. If that business case doesn't show improvements from the current situation to the new situation, it will be very, very hard to sustain it. We can try to repair all kinds of things with subsidies or whatever, but it's basically not working. So first of all, we have to get the business case right. And the business case is not just a one-time assessment, but it's basically, as a project manager, an evaluation, a constant monitoring of that business case of all involved value chain partners over time. That's an important project management principle I learned even before I went into banking. So let's keep on applying that. When we have that business case, and I indicated the elements of it earlier, then basically there is a basis for investment and financing by private sector entities. And that should, in my view, always be kind of the starting point. Then is the question, of course, do we need public sector financing, de-risking, or support anywhere? And I see basically two areas. One is our projects for implementation require funding. And that funding can sometimes be obtained from the business case in the value chain itself, but very often it cannot. It requires a lot of design, outreach to rural areas, technical assistance, policy development, that requires funding separately. So that is one. It's not very big money, but it needs to be put on the table. The second is that looking and assuming this positive business case, we are still concerned about the transition. So the current situation has a certain financial dynamic. The new situation is supposed to be better for all actors, but the transition is still sometimes insurmountable or difficult. Maintaining the status quo is always less risky than applying changes. And the end situation may be better, but the change is still the issue. So we need to de-risk the transition. And that's exactly where I think Green Climate Fund can come in, World Bank can come in, regional development banks can come in.
Okay.
And we need some things from you. We need easy access to your de-risking. We need smaller tickets because especially in the beginning, the tickets are smaller, are not the 5 million plus that you would normally require, or that Rabobank for that matter would normally require. We need to do smaller tickets, which very often need to do local currency financing and de-risking the local currency risk. And so those are a few of the technicalities. But basically my message is there's a positive business case, so I think it can be done. Thank you.
Great, excellent. Well, thank you very much. I think we came to the end of this discussion, and I was going to ask each of the panelists to give one key message to leave the audience with. So, Ben, you already gave your message, so that's excellent.
That's it, and I'm just excited to do it, and very excited to work with the Cool Coalition. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you. So let me ask each of the panelists very briefly, really 1 or 2 words. You know, what is your key message, as Ben said, de-risking the transition? That's enough. Javier, very briefly, 1 or 2 words.
Yeah, thank you, Sutini. It was great to hear from Ben, because you were precisely describing what the role of the GCF is about. In the risking, in providing technical assistance, we do have a program that we call the Readiness Program, which has an allocation of up to $1 million per country a year, and that's exactly the objective.
Okay.
Important. Yes, only one more thing, Sutini. Important for me to say, please, Ben, I would be very happy to take this offline, Kevin as well, and happy to hear from Vikas, because I do agree the India Cooling Action Plan is probably the most comprehensive plan across the value chain. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vikas. I need just 1 or 2 words. Vikas.
1 or 2 words would be shared use, multiple use. I think that would sum up the way it should be designed.
Great, thanks. Kevin?
Support the 4 pillars.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. So I hope this is clear to everyone on what the key points really to take away from this, since I don't have time to sum up. But thank you all the panelists for really this interesting discussion and very informative. Thank you very much. So now it's really my great pleasure to invite and introduce Her Excellency Honorable Minister Dr. Jeanne d'Arc Mujawamariya from Rwanda, who will deliver closing remarks. Your Excellency, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. It's a pleasure to engage on this topic, which is so critical to the future of Africa's sustainable development and undoubtedly critical for our friends throughout the developing world. Thank you for the fruitful discussions on powering sustainable cold chain solutions. I would like to briefly recap some key context and then extend a special invitation to you. As we have heard, around 1/3 of greenhouse emissions globally come from agriculture. In sub-Saharan Africa, between 30% and 50% of the food we produce is lost to the detriment of farmers, malnourished consumers, and the environment. In Rwanda, 40% of harvested produce is lost between the farm and the marketplace, and 19% of the population does not have enough to eat, according to the World Bank report 2020. Rwanda's cabinet issued a national cooling strategy in 2019 with a stark synthesis of these considerations and recommendations to tackle cooling challenges directly and holistically. This is in complementarity with the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. Establishing a robust, affordable, and sustainable cold chain is critical to empower smallholder farmers, expand business opportunities, and enhance the health and well-being of our people by mitigating food losses and safeguarding medicines. Cooling is complex and cuts across agriculture, health, and industry sectors. Therefore, it needs to be addressed comprehensively and continuously. Narrow and short-term interventions will not suffice if we are serious about the issues before us. For example, ports, isolated area of this.
So, Your Excellency, we don't hear you anymore. I hope you can reconnect. We
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, you can hear me. Sorry. So I was saying that cooling is a complex and cut across agriculture.
Sorry, we lost you again. Let's give it one more attempt.
We give one more attempt.
Yes, go ahead. We keep losing you. Go ahead now. We can hear you.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Oh, sorry. My apology. So
No
narrow and short-term interventions will not suffice if we are serious about the issues before us. For example, occasional reports, isolated area of research, a few training courses, or one-off demonstrations of cold stores or other equipment in lieu of integrated systems simply will not bring about the rapid and large-scale transformation that is needed. Therefore, I invite you to join and support the Africa Center of Excellence for Sustainable Cooling and Cold Chain, a newly established game-changing initiative that is Pan-African in scope of designed to disrupt a business-as-usual scenario that is no longer viable. CCHs aims to unlock the pathway for Africans to lead the world into sustainable cooling and cold chain arenas. Over the past year, the governments of Rwanda and the United Kingdom have partnered with the United Nations Environment Programme's United for Efficiency team, the Center for Sustainable Cooling, and leading universities to launch and operationalize CCHs. It is a permanent center of excellence that is truly interdisciplinary and tailored to address the myriad challenges that we explored in today's session. CCHs offers a strategic approach to pursue applied research into areas of greatest need, support entrepreneurs by linking them with investors, teach new students as well as build the expertise of seasoned equipment technicians and local farmers, and interface with officials on policies that enable cold chain solutions to thrive. SES is designed as a hub and spoke model, which its headquarters are at the University of Rwanda's Rubirizi campus in Kigali, Rwanda, serving as the central point for developing innovative solutions and convening international collaborators. The headquarters will interconnect with a network of affiliated living laboratories throughout Africa. These cooling hubs in rural locations will implement and help refine the market-based solutions for the cold chain and post-harvest management developed by the center, exchanging lessons learned and inspiring other rural communities to scale up these approaches. We established governance structures with top officials and experts from the public, private, academic, and civil society sectors, including from the East African Community Secretariat and African Union, to ensure continental scale representation. SES offers an unparalleled opportunity to help meet national development targets while fulfilling obligations under Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol and, of course, the Paris Climate Agreement. Please reach out to Rwanda's Ministries of Environment, UNEP, United for Efficiency, the University of Rwanda, or our partners from the UK to get involved as Africa Center of Excellence for Sustainable Cooling and Cold Chain blazes this new trail. Together, we will deliver solutions needed to underpin a prosperous, healthy, integrated, and climate-friendly Africa. Thank you very much for the organizing this great event. We look forward to the journey ahead together. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you for your closing remarks and for sharing with us what this means to Africa and sharing with us also the Africa Center of Excellence for cooling and the experience. So thank you very much. And I'm really pleased that we brought together some of the key partners in this initiative. And this is just the start. I hope that we can maintain this collaboration, this coalition going forward, particularly in the lead up to the Food System Summit, COP26 and beyond, because this is something that needs to make an impact, not just for the short, but really for the long term. So thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to all the colleagues who joined us today. I can see that the chat box has been active. So thank you for sharing your thoughts and points there. And let me, before I finish, thank the team who has been involved in organizing this event. Sophie, Lily, Irene, and the whole team. So thank you all very much, and thank you for inviting me to moderate. It's been a pleasure. So I hope we can keep in touch, because this is really an interesting topic and there is so much to do in this space. So thank you all very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.